Hey guys, it's Rock Papa. In the last video we talked about rifting, continental rifting, which creates and expands oceans, and subduction, plate subduction, which creates and expands continents. If you haven't seen that video, it would be helpful for you to take a look at it before looking at this one. But anyhow, today we're going to talk about three important events. We're going to start with the existence of Rodinia Supercontinent about 1 billion years ago. We're going to talk about the breakup of Rodinia, the rifting of supercontinent Rodinia. That's going to be number one topic. Number two topic is going to be the rift to drift sequence and the Cambrian explosion, and we'll get into that in some detail. And then finally, we're going to talk about the post-Knox unconformity. We'll find out what an unconformity is, and we'll look at the post-Knox unconformity as our number three event that came after the rift-to-drift sequence and before our first major subduction event, which will be in a following video. In the beginning, I thought I'd put the whole tectonic history of North America into one video, but I realized that's too big of a hunk for me to digest and probably for you too. So we're going to look at those three things today, and hopefully you will find this video useful. If so, please subscribe. Thank you a bunch to all my excellent subscribers. I appreciate you. I know some of you individually, but I think about you as individuals and friends, rock friends. It makes me happy. So here we go. Rifting of Rodinia, the rift-to-drift sequence and the Cambrian explosion, and the post-Knox unconformity. About 1 billion years ago, all of the land masses of Earth were combined into one giant supercontinent, and that continent is called Rodinia. Here is an approximate picture of what supercontinent Rodinia looked like, with the red circle around Laurentia, which contains us, North America. 1 billion years ago. About 750 million years ago, supercontinent Rodinia began to break apart, began to rift apart. This rifting process went on until about 550 million years ago, and it resulted in Rodinia supercontinent breaking up into smaller continents with oceans in between. Rifting creates and enlarges oceans. Next thing that happened was the Cambrian period that lasted from about 550 million years ago to about 500 million years ago. During Cambrian time, the rift-to-drift sequence of sediments was laid down all over the world. So what do we mean by rift-to-drift? Well, you know, a supercontinent is laying on top of a very hot mantle, and that bulges the supercontinent up. Sea level goes down. Once the supercontinent splits up into various smaller continents, they all sink back down. The ocean rises, or you could say the land sinks, and the sea encroaches on the continent of North America. That's rift to drift. Anytime the ocean encroaches on the land, the first thing you get is a huge layer of clean beach sand spread across the land. The next thing you get is a layer of mud that represents the intercoastal waterway mud and the mud from river deltas. And finally, you get a layer of limestone, especially if you're in a warm climate. These three layers represent the rift-to-drift sediments. And you can find these layers all over North America. Matter of fact, you can find them all over the world. Let's look at these layers in the Grand Canyon. If you go down deep into the Grand Canyon, you will find the Tapeats sandstone, which represents the beaches, the Bright Angel shale, which represents the mud layer, and the Mauve I love that word, limestone, which represents the limey mud that capped off the whole thing. In the eastern United States, those same rift to drift layers are the Chilhowie sandstone on the bottom, the Rome and Conasauga shales above that, and the Knox limestone on top. What about that Cambrian explosion? Well, you know, supercontinent Rodinia started out way south of the equator in a cold place, but via the processes of plate tectonics and continental drift, it began to drift north. And by Cambrian time, it was located in the warm, shallow seas of the trade wind belts just south of the equator. By this time, the algae of the Precambrian had put a tremendous amount of oxygen in the water and in the atmosphere. This gave rise to then an explosion of life. So let's look at some of that strange life of the Cambrian explosion. Here are some of the weird and wonderful creatures of the Cambrian explosion for you to enjoy. The first and perhaps coolest discovery of the Cambrian explosion fossils happened in 1909 high up in the Rocky Mountains of British Columbia, Canada, and was discovered by a fellow named Dr. Walcott, who worked for the Smithsonian Institute. The Burgess shell preserved intricate details of the soft bodies of some of these amazing creatures that we did not even know existed. Remember when we just talked about the rift to drift sequence of sediments that starts with a layer of sand beaches, then you get a layer of mud, then you get a layer of limey mud that turns into limestone? Well, the Burgess shale and the Cambrian explosion occurred in that dark mud layer that's in between the sandstone and the limey mud of the limestone. The third and last topic in this video is the post-Knox unconformity. What is an unconformity? It is a place where rock layers have been eroded away, creating a gap in the rock record of time. Hey guys, unconformities happen when land, for some reason or another, is shoved up above ocean level, and the forces of erosion and weathering begin to work on it, and washing hunks of the land away and down into the sea. The post-Knox unconformity happened at the end of Cambrian and the beginning of Ordovician, around 500 million years ago, plus or minus. Let's find out now what caused this unconformity. This picture shows the beginnings of the tectonic orogeny, or mountain building event, that we'll discuss in detail in the next video. The yellow circle encircles what represents a long chain of volcanic islands that's approaching the mainland of North America as the tectonic orogeny begins. As the island arc gets closer and closer to the continent, it pushes way down on the continental crust at the ocean's edge, and that bulges the crust up further inland. This bulge of land crust is called the forebulge, and it migrates inland across the continent as the island arc continues to approach. This migrating forebulge lifts the continent above sea level giving rise to erosion and creating an unconformity. And in the case of the post-Knox unconformity, it was limestone, the top layer of the rift-to-drift sequence, that got eroded, and this created a special kind of topography called Karst Topography. As you guys know from past videos, limestone is a base, calcium carbonate. That's a base, like baking soda. And water is a weak acid, so that when rainwater falls on limestone, it erodes holes, sinkholes, and caves into the limestone, creating a kind of a honeycomb effect. That's karst topography. And in the next video, we're going to find out the incredible interaction between this karst topography and the volcanics of mountain building events that gives rise to great mineral resources. Okay, most excellent rock buddies, that's it for today. The rifting of supercontinent Rodinia, the rift-to-drift sequence of sediments, and the Cambrian explosion, and the post-Knox unconformity and karst topography. Hope you like this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. This is your Rock Papa saying, have a great day and happy rock hunting. Papa out.